I think that the Codex app is a game changer for developers throughout. And if you haven't checked it out, you should. I'm going to give you an overview of this. But before I do that, I just want to mention that I was settled into using OpenCode until last week when this app was released. I had that set up. I was very happy with that. But then I saw this announcement and I saw the hype and I decided to try it. So I've been using exclusively Codex for my side projects since last week. So a little over 1 week just doing that. And I think that saying that this is a game changer for the developers is not hyperbole. No, OpenAI's Codex was not the first to do something like this, but the fact that it is OpenAI and it has its size and reach, I think that that's a good reason to say that this is a game changer. So if you haven't seen Codex yet, here's a brief overview of it. It is not an IDE. You're not going to edit any code in here. In fact, they make it very clearly by being able to open an IDE from here. So I have mine set up to Z here, but you have other options in there. It is a tool to interact with your code base through a chat window and nothing more than it. You can review code and the experience there is really good. I'm going to mention that. But mainly what you have is this here. It's very similar to the agent mode in Cursor if you have used that. But as I said, this is dedicated to not being an IDE, just a agent interaction here. Now, let's take a look at this. So I have a couple of projects here. So each one of these ones here are projects. And that's one cool thing of it. You can manage multiple projects without ever leaving this window here. So I can trigger one task here and you see the blue dot here, meaning that this task is completed or at least waiting for my feedback here. And in a different project, I have two other tasks in here. So that's the first thing that I really like about this. You have multiple projects and you don't ever need to leave this same window, and even multiple tasks. I can trigger different tasks, and I'll talk about multiple tasks in a second here, but this experience of being able to navigate between the different tasks that I have here without ever leaving or without ever looking for other tabs, that is something that is really productive. So I've been doing this a lot. I've been starting tasks in one project, and if I know that I have a second task that I can handle and it's not going to interfere with the same code space, I trigger a second task on the same project, as you can see down here. And this notion here was not conceivable to me before. I know that there are multiple ways to manage this with terminal windows or even IDE windows, but this makes it very simple. And this is so simple that these two projects here, Randomize My Games and ttemp-link, are projects that I had in the back of my mind and I was not touching those just because I didn't have the headspace to work with them. Now I do. Now I think that I can work with that, and the mental shift of switching between those applications is becoming less of an effort. And this application here, ttemp.link, is just a link shortener that I always thought I wanted to build, and I never did because it was something that was not of such great value. The one value that I've always saw is that I would retain the data and not ever pay for this kind of service. But I didn't want to go and take the time to work on it. Now, this is one that I just decided to, okay, I'm not going to even look at the code. I'm just going to build it. It's for myself. It's open source. If anyone wants to use it, it's there. I have now this application here that is 100% built without me even look at the code. And I really don't mind. The stakes here are not that high. It is working, but I don't care about how the code has been generated. That's my point here. And I have links that I can create here. I have a dashboard. I have analytics with charts. And all of that was done without me ever touching the code, just going through Codex. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that this is so effortless. I just need to look at this. Is there a blue dot here that I need to check something? I test it out. And if it's good, that's good. I start a new task and I move on to something that I need to worry about a little bit more. I know that there's a danger to that if there is something that is more relevant than this, but in my case, that was not an issue. So that's my first point here. Switching between applications and tasks can become seamless. So the other part of this is how you interact with the agent and you provide feedback. There are a few different ways. One of those is you can come to the diffs here and look at the code in here. Nothing new in there, but the cool part is how you can handle this. So for instance here, I can definitely say here that you don't need to explicitly type the props. You can just use the generated types that from SvelteKit. There you go. This is a comment, and you can see the comment was added here. And I can do this for as many comments I want to do, for any lines I want to do, and I can even add more instructions to this chat window here. And all of those are going to be sent at once to the model. I think that this makes for a better UX when interacting with the agent. So I really, really like this, which brings me to the point that reviewing the code is not an unpleasant experience here. Although you can be generating lots and lots more code here, but the way you can interact with it and provide feedback to the agent is very clean. So that is my second point. Commenting the code and providing feedback is a good way. So there's another way to provide feedback, which is commenting here while the agent is working. So I can say, make all functions in this changes named functions. And I provide feedback, and you can see this steer here. Steer means I'm going to just interrupt the agent right now, and it's going to take action based on this comment. Or I can leave it there and wait for it to finish its train of thought and then execute that. So I can decide that, or even I can say, okay, you know what? This doesn't make any sense anymore, and I can delete that. So that other UX experience to provide feedback to the agent is also very clean and very easy to do. So makes the back and forth better. Third point that I want to mention is how Codex handles skills. So skills, you probably heard of that, you've probably been using it, but it's very simple to use skills in here. I know you have skills.sh where you can install using npx. That's great as well. But you have a library of skills in here already, and you can create your new skill from here. And it has a skill creator to create a new skill. So I've done that already. So integrating and using skills is also very seamless. So skills are very powerful. And if you've been using that, if you have used the skills in the past, you know that it is a great way to steer or pass instructions to the agent in the appropriate time. And having this process of adding or creating skills so seamlessly integrated with your coding agent is, again, game changer. Another one, and I have to admit, it's forced me to better understand Worktrees. And you can see that whenever you see this icon here, I'm using Worktrees, and I'm heavily using them right now. So what happens with Codex is whenever you start a new task, and you can say that this new task is going to be started in a work tree. So for instance here, this one was started in a work tree. So if I were to start a new one here, you can even say from which branch is going to be started from. So once you have this work tree, you have a few options here. You can branch in this work tree. So what's happening here is that Codex is going to create a new branch on that work tree, and you can then work from there. So here I will be creating this branch, and I can commit it directly. I can push and create a PR from here. So again, if I look at this code, I review and say, okay, this is good enough to me. Let's just create a PR. I can do that. I'm not going to do this. What I'm going to do is, since I switched to this branch, and you can see here, I am in a different branch now on that work tree, I can open my editor. And if I bring this one here, you can see that I am in that branch right here. So if I even PWD here, you can see that I'm in a work tree from Codex. And if I have configured my environment correctly, and I have an action set up here, for instance, I have this run dev action. What I can do is I can run my development from here. And by doing that, what is happening here is that I'm just testing the changes from this work tree specifically, which is great. I don't need to keep managing different branches. From here, then I can come into my browser and test it, right? And I'm testing from that work tree that I started the server from, which means that if I come here and I stop this service and say that I started a different work tree with different changes, I could do the same thing. I hit play here, and I'm gonna test those in isolation just by stopping the service from one console thread and starting the dev server in a different thread in here. I can just switch between those two tasks and test them in isolation, which is great. And then from here, I can, if I decided, okay, this is good, and I can now commit this, and I can commit and create a PR, it's going to generate a good, reasonable message, and I can test it. So working with Worktrees with Codex made these changes in parallel happen faster. And because of that, another benefit happens is you can be very precise and minimal in each one of the threads and tasks, meaning that I can give a very small set of instructions. So the agent doesn't need to do a lot of things, because the more it does, the more chance of it getting lost or deviating from the plan. So this way, what I can do is start a work tree, simple instructions, give it a task, start a different work tree with a different task, and then you switching and testing between the two is fairly easy. The final point I want to make here, which I think is great about Codex, is going to the settings here. The settings are not, there are not a lot of things. There are the things that you would expect. For instance, you can set up your MCP servers. You can look at past work trees and delete them, although there's a way to delete them automatically when you archive the threads. You can set up your environment so that when you start a new environment, you have everything for that work tree to work. But the thing is personalization here, and mine here for now is very simple. I'm still playing with this, but this works every single time. When I first started this, I just wrote this line here and I forgot to add linked to this list here. And for every single time that it made changes to code, you ran format and check in every single repository, but never linked. Once I realized that that was the case, I just added this, and now every single time it does run all three of them. It tries to follow a functional programming style and uses bun by default, right? So this personalization here, as much as you want to make Codex yours here, I think this is going to be a great benefit. I don't know how much it is a problem the more you add here in terms of context window, but so far these instructions have been really great. Now, I said all that, and I do mean that Codex is a game changer because of all that. That makes everybody more productive. I think that I feel more productive. So the risk here is shipping code that you're never looking at, right? And I don't think that this is on Codex. This is happening everywhere, but this definitely facilitates that. It is obviously up to you to look at the code and decide if it's good or not. It is more and more important to set instructions, boundaries, and ways for the agent to auto check itself, be that with types, tests, or any other type of validation, because that's going to help. But again, that is a risk. The second thing is, and this is going through my mind more and more, the shift of what a software engineer does is changing. You think you are going to be writing code next year. And if you think you're doing that, I think you're going to be behind. I believe that 1 year from now, I truly believe that 1 at most 2 years, most, if not all code is going to be written by agents. But I do believe that the fact that we have these tools are going to make the engineering job change and shift a lot. We're not going to be writing as much code. We're going to be drivers or steers of the agents. And that is a reality for many people already. Most of my code these days, I really try to not type it myself. I still go into editors, I still write some code, but I'm trying to do less and less. And I'm still pondering and thinking about all the consequences of that, not writing code anymore. That is definitely something for a different time and discussion, but I think that definitely Codex is pushing towards that. And that's a reality that we need to face. Anyway, I think that because I am a fan of the GPT Codex models, I was more leaning to test this one and try this one. And I also think that, as I said, because OpenAI is so big, this is a game changer because of the size of OpenAI. Anyway, I'll keep on using. Let me know what you think, and see you next time.